Loud and proud and coming through. Here we go. The views and opinions of this program are those of the host and guests and do not represent any sponsors, affiliates, or anybody else. Boy, good night on the Malliard Report. We're doing live calls tonight. 234-738-2552. Numbers available on the screen and social media everywhere. And hey, I got news for you. If you don't want to call in tonight, but you may want to call in the future, save this number. This has been the call-in number for this show since I started doing call-ins. Local terms and tools and all that fun stuff apply. Okay. You're noticing something, I'm sure. Well, listeners to this program are noticing something right now about me. They're noticing. I know. I can see them high in the duck pond. They're noticing it right now as the show's catching up to where it feeds live into the chat room. They're noticing. They're noticing it. What are they noticing? First, we're noticing that Germantown Runner's still alive. Second thing we're noticing is I've got a chip on my shoulder, and you can hear it right now. And we're going to get into that right off the top of this program because I don't want to get interrupted with any live calls. But if you call in, we'll take your call right now. So go ahead. But first, I've got to tell the story. Right? I got the story. I've got a list of stories over here that are grinding my gears tonight. So if you want to call in, but I'm telling you, I'm good. Not really. So, anyways. Okay, so first things first. And this ties into the Germantown Runner thing. He got banned for being a bot, which is phenomenal. Because everyone who knows that I run automation on Twitter. Okay, that's great. I get it. I understand it upsets some people. I fully appreciate that because it would be upsetting. And it is upsetting to see somebody marketing their stuff on top of your stuff. Here's the thing. Come back over the top, market me. Market back. Don't complain about spam. Block me, okay? Fine. So be it. I don't really care if you think I'm spam. You don't have to sit around bitching about it, okay? Fine. Said that off the top. Block it. Great. Be done with it. Don't sit around saying, I'm going to report you as spam. Well, bullshit. Just fucking shut up and go away. First and foremost. Because guess what? I already blocked you when you said spam to me. Just in case you're wondering. Okay, that's not even my point tonight, though. My point tonight is so big and has me so frustrated, I'm literally angry about this. And that's not what I'm angry about. That's just leading up and setting the table to this. Okay? A few weeks ago, I had Jim Huff on the show. His brother I had Joe on. Him and his brother Jim Huff run the Gateway Pundit, right? We're all familiar. Okay, think about that site what you will. Some people call it fake news. Some people call it hack job. Whatever you want to call it, right? Somebody called it one of those things to me this afternoon. So I immediately reply, well, tell me what I should be looking at then. Which is often my reply when somebody comes into that. Because I come at the show objectively, right? I bring them on because they offer an opinion. I bring other people on because they offer opinion. I bring people on to bring an opinion, to bring that emotional reaction out. If you haven't noticed, you haven't been paying attention, I bring a lot of those lightning rod type people on. Some, like Chef Andrew Gould, everybody kind of got, but there was wide open thoughts in there, right? About the fish situation. If you haven't heard that, you need to go listen to that. I know. People kind of glossed over that and thought that was an easy show. That wasn't an easy show. That was a lightning rod show. Right? Okay, so if you're going to sit here and tell me the Gateway Pundit is fake news, tell me what news I'm supposed to be looking at. I love asking people that because there's often no discourse, and that is the problem. That's what's got me fired up tonight. There is no discourse. There's no conversation. There is no exchanging of ideas anymore. And that has to change. Has to change. Are you listening? I know most of my listeners out there already agree with me on this. Or some of them don't. Some of them don't want to hear it. Some of you guys don't want to hear this right now. You want to be whatever side you want to be, and you just want to be that. And whatever anybody else posts is wrong. And that isn't right. You need to be willing to see the other side. I'm not saying you have to agree with it. I'm not saying you have to even accept it. I'm just saying you have to see it. And if you're going to call something out, you have to have the courage and the knowledge to say what is better. Okay? Is that fair? Can we agree to that? Because saying something is trash or fake news or not the answer, I understand that, right? There's a lot of things out there that don't sit well with me. Okay? But I don't sit around and bitch about it because I don't know the answer. And fake news is that point for me. Because, well, I don't agree with anything Fox or CNN says. Right? Because they have their bias, and it shows. Does that mean I should agree with anything? No, you can't necessarily. So you have to process. And I understand that. There's nuance, right? But when you sit there and say something's trash, that tells me you see something as treasure. And if you can't identify the treasure, then how do you identify trash? Opening rant brought to you by duckpond.shop. Or duckpondshop.com. I keep saying the shortened address, and it's for sale, and I should buy it because I butcher it so damn much. Anyways, that's what I'm fired up about tonight. There's a lot in the world that's wrong, right? And Germantown Runner. Did you hear Glenn Beck the other day? Let's see, what day would this have been? Well, today's Tuesday, so it would have been Monday, right? Okay. Early in the show, probably off the top of his show, going on about reaching the last exit on the highway. Germantown Runner, if you heard that, let me know. I think that's an interesting point that he's trying to make, but boy, he put a little. I think he went a little far. So I want to know if Germantown Runner heard that, because if not, I don't want to be misperceiving what Glenn Beck said, because I do have respect for the man. That doesn't necessarily mean I agree with him. Same with Rush and a whole bunch of other people. Right? I respect what they do day in and day out. And let me tell you, that's phenomenal. When you sit there in front of a microphone, clang, clang on mine, and do what they do for hours. Right? I get it. Right? So they have to, and what they do is phenomenal. Right? Because what I do once a week for an hour when I do this is kind of a drip compared to what they do. So, okay, so having said that, right, I've kind of brought it back to where one of the talking points that somebody mentioned to me. And this kind of got me in trouble this afternoon. Another one of these things that got me in trouble with Twitter this afternoon. I seen defund NPR trending. So I jumped on it, right, because that's opportunistic to be a spammer. I admit it. I went after spamming it because I think the Malliard Report needs to be out there. And here's why, right? Defunding NPR. Okay, now see this. I know Germantown Runner is going to love to hear this because I've changed my mind on this yet again, right? At one time, it was important to have an independent voice producing good content. Of course, at that time, you could lean into the media and thought they were more objective than they were today. And whoever's watching on the video, sorry, I forgot to change the autofocus setting. Sorry about that. My bad. Guy's a little fired up. There it goes, blurring again. Anyways. Coming back to NPR here in a minute. We got a caller. Welcome to the Malliard Report. What did I say to piss you off?
Duck Mess, Town Runner.
Yes, sir. How you doing tonight?
Oh, I feel compelled to call in. How many years have I lobbied for at least an occasional open line with real live callers? And now that you've granted it, I've got to support the evening. I've got to support the concept with a phone call.
Well, 5, I think it is. So, but what's grinding?
Say again?
What's grinding your gears tonight? Because, like I said, I've got a whole list of things. Actually, I got a story that you shared earlier, wrote down to talk about as well.
Well, what is that? Tell me.
Let's see. Hold on, I got to scribble my notes here. UFO watching replaces bird watching. The Wall Street Journal. See, this kind of all ties together tonight. In this kind of
yes, you saw that.
Yeah, I was on Gab today, folks.
Yes,
I was on
exactly.
Gab. So
yes, it is. In the Space and Technology group, which is moderated by yours truly.
Yeah. So why? Okay. So I was just talking about fake news, and you probably heard most of this, right? You get most of what I'm saying. If you're going to say something, you have to have the counter argument. We just can't hate everything. We have to have productive conversations. And that is so lost in today's climate that it's ridiculous. Okay. So, but here, I was getting ready to talk about defending NPR. But here we are again with, I mean, I don't want to say fake news, but why is the Wall Street Journal? When I think Wall Street Journal, I think nothing about bird watching or UFOs.
Why are they covering that story? I think, well, first of all, the Journal does do non-financial stories. They cover politics, they cover the business of sports, and they do general cultural trend stories from time to time. They're a newspaper, after all, so while most of their stuff is the daily story of American and international business, they do occasionally do a flight of fancy story like the UFO story that was today. But as you and I have discussed, and you've had discussed with other guests on your show, you know, this, if you're more, I don't know, I'll use the word conspiracy, even though I don't like that word. If you're more conspiratorial-minded, you could say, was that article that was published in the Journal today just another piece in the 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle that is disclosure? I don't know. I mean, could it be? Why not?
Who was? I'm drawing a blank here at the moment, but I know I've talked about drip disclosure with somebody. How it's just gonna, like, we're never gonna get the big thing. It's just gonna keep dripping out for years, and in 10, 15, 20 years, it's all good. Everybody's gonna be like, yeah, what's the news here? I mean, I think we kind of got there with the Space Force, right? Like.
Yes.
I thought that was earth-shattering, different to the world, and everybody's like,
Which is very telling, right? I mean, just a number of years ago, a few short years ago, the announcement of the Space Force would have been huge. I mean, it would have been the biggest story of that particular year. You know, they rank the stories at the end of the year. It would, it'd be in the top 3 for sure. But like you just said, a lot of people were, we're ready for it. Yeah, makes sense. Let's do it. Yeah, sounds fun. I'll sign up. Where can I enlist?
I was going to say, I have more people wanting to join than are concerned about it.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's really captured the attention of people, and I think it's simply because of the good job that Hollywood has done, and I can't believe I'm in the position of saying something, relatively good about Hollywood, but, they have done a good job over the decades of telling really quality sci-fi stories, real quality space alien stories, and, especially now with computer graphics and everything, it's just, it's practically the number one genre of movies in the world right now. They've done such a good job of that the public's fascination and willing to accept something like the United States Space Force is now, just like you just said, it's a matter of fact. It's just like, great, yeah, Space Force, bring it on.
I think we need to give a shout out to Daniel Albel at this point, since we're talking about Hollywood, and I think it goes back even further to Philip K. Dick, and Daniel is a great part of that film festival every year, and they always are trying to get on every year. It works out every other year that I get them on because of timing.
Right.
But so we got to give them a shout out at this moment, because they have been a great friend of the show and continue to be, even in the years that I already have outreached my coverage in that point. So,
well, not only that, but I think that a lot of I'm going to give a tip of my duckbill hat to you right now and to the rest of the podcast community. But for many, many years, it has been the podcasters that really picked up the baton and ran with the baton when it wasn't necessarily a popular baton to carry. And what am I referring to? I'm talking about trying to address the entire UFO paranormal topic with a straight face, seriously, academically, with serious guests that are not laughed at or made fun of, with an audience that you never condescend to, who are, generally and sincerely interested in this topic. And for years, the mainstream media would, laugh at people, broadcasters, podcasters, who would dare dip their toe in this pond, if you will. And, it was the podcast community, of which you are one of the leaders on this topic, who carried that baton for so long. And now the rest of the media has caught up to you. The New York Times, the Wall Street Journal today. Today, the Wall Street Journal, the daily diary of American business, considered the second most prestigious newspaper to work for after the New York Times. Is running stories. So, you guys have really been the bridge. The podcasting and the narrowcasting radio community has really been the bridge to, what's the word I'm looking for? To legitimacy, to legitimizing this. Even though all of us who have believed in it for a long time, we didn't need to have it legitimized to us. We knew something was up. We have brains and eyes and ears. We can, reason these things through ourselves. But for so many, they needed this bridge, this gap that you guys have stepped into and filled. And I think you've done a real service for science, for knowledge, for the culture. I really do. I think it's been great. And only now is the mainstream media catching up to you. You're way ahead of them.
So a couple points off the top of that. Too kind, first and foremost. Whoever's calling in, I'll get to you in a second. Keep hanging up.
I'll get off.
No, I got another point for you, but I got to thank you for the kind words. Boy, that just totally lost my train of thought. But I think, I was talking about NPR, and I'm gonna grab your take because I know you're pro what I'm about ready to say. I think we've reached the point now where independent media, us, me, podcasters, a bunch of us, not just me, have reached the saturation point where not only mainstream media is taking a hit, but I think NPR has to take a hit, and I think the paradigm, especially newspapers, I know this is not going to surprise you because I know you've heard me talk about this before. I think the wave is changing, and if people aren't paying attention, it's going to change without them. And I'm looking forward to that dynamic continue to shift, and yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited about where I'm at and where it's going.
Yeah, I think that you should be, and I think that some of the tweaking that you've done to the topics of your show, and you know me, I've been one that have pretty much enthusiastically endorsed you wading into the area of politics or sports or news headlines of the day or biomedical stuff. All the topics you've covered now that are not necessarily paranormal any longer. I've also been counseling you on the side saying, hey, don't forget the paranormal community. Don't forget the remote viewing community. That's been a long, dedicated and loyal base for you that you've built upon. So it's I think that you've done a magnificent job in blending the two.
And you mentioned the paranormal community. I have a UFO guest that I'm so excited to talk to, but as I told him the other day when I was talking to him, off the record, so to speak, I said I've got an election in November, and between now and then, it's just not going to happen. This is a January conversation, not right now. And he was totally on board.
Yes, exactly. When January comes, there'll be lots of time. Hey, look, when December comes, there'll be lots of time to wade back into some of the fun topics that everybody knows and loves. But yeah, there's a momentous election coming up that people are interested in, and frankly, a lot of the topics that you've been discussing on a week-to-week basis all fold back into this election. It all folds back into public policy and where we're going to allocate money and not allocate money. Are we going to go to Mars and Moon or not? Are we going to do more private sector stuff with Elon Musk and with Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos? Are we going to go more NASA route with the taxpayers? It's all these topics that you've been discussing all eventually roll up to this big election coming up in 60 days. So, I think that's very appropriate, and I think that makes a lot of sense. After the election, yeah, I think the pendulum should swing a little bit. Not that I have any say in it, but I think it would make sense if it did. swing away from politics into other things.
You do have a little say. And, I didn't get to tell you because I can't send you a direct message on Gab, who I've got next week. Okay, so last week I set out to book a guest for last week, and I managed to book a guest for next week somehow. And you are going to love next week's guest.
Oh, I can't wait. I look forward to every week.
I'm telling you, you're looking forward to next week in a big way. I'll tell you in the chat room here in a few minutes once we get the next caller on here.
All right, that sounds good. Well, I'll let you go. I encourage everyone else to call in.
I will spoil that on the duck pond for the people. I'll spoil that on the duck pond for everybody who's listening. And I bet you a few people on there know, and a few people will have to Google it, which is fine.
There you go.
So, all right, my friend, thank you, and
all right.
I'll see you on Gab.
In the pond.
I'll see you on Gab. I'm committed to at least visit there once a day. So if you start tagging me and stuff, you'll ensure that I have to continue doing that.
All right, I will add you to my tag list on Gab, where speaking the truth is never against the rules.
Well, I'm always against the rules. I mean, against... Oh, wait, I can't be against telling the truth.
I talk to you. Bye.
Thank you, Germantown Runner. And speaking of Germantown Runner, you need to go hear him on Paranormal Heart with Kat Ward. She sent me the YouTube link, and I have not listened to it yet because I am a horrible human being, but I will. And I know I have to because I have to. So there's that. What's Gab? It's kind of like Twitter, but not necessarily so red-taped currently. I'm always leery about saying things like that because Facebook was a great site for a long time, and then it went public, and it just caused trouble. Twitter was a great site for a while. It went public and caused trouble because when you have shareholders, you have financial responsibilities, and when you have financial responsibilities, you have to play games. Or, excuse me, make money. Okay, so whoever's been calling in, please call back in. I don't like stacking guests on top of each other because it gets confusing for me, let alone the listeners out there who may not know these people of all sorts. So, there's that. Okay, so here's the next thing that's kind of on the list over here to think about as we're running through this media spin, right? I told Germantown Runner this the other day on Twitter before he got suspended. I've been watching for it, and I want to get this on the record. So this is why I'm doing it now without Germantown Runner, because I want this on the air. Somebody bookmark the time and date, because this, my friends, is important. Sports radio is dead. Let me repeat that. Sports talk radio is dead. Now, it's not going to die officially ever, right? Because there's too much content that can be produced and consumed. But I'm talking at the peak. It's peaked and it's coming down hard. It's not what it's going to be in 5 years. It's going to look radically different. Okay? So maybe dead is strong. It is strong. But I foresee it. I see it. Right now, if you look, stations starting to squirm away from national programming and bringing it back local. Excuse me. I see it. It's happening. And Toro in the chat room just said it as I was getting ready to say it, coming out of my mouth, which is like time machine stuff. Politics has killed sports. I understand the platform. I understand the arguments that are made. I understand the leverage they have. But when you have leverage, it can go both ways. I'm not saying they shouldn't take a stand, but I'm just saying you have to be careful when you do. Because it can work the opposite direction. Because when there's no fans in the stands and the ratings are down, when they should be at least holding steady, it makes you wonder. Makes me wonder. As a consumer of all things media and statistically related, right? Like, I know my show numbers have been down. And then all of a sudden, on my birthday, if you missed that, you missed that. Too damn bad. The numbers spiked. And ever since then, they've been trending a little bit higher. Is that because we're back to school and people are starting to ramp up and return to normal? Yeah, that's why. I know that. I knew that going in. I didn't expect it to be so steep and so hard, but whatever. It's not like I have stockholders and shareholders and need to make money. I mean, making money would be great. But I understand the flow of the trends. Okay? Yes, people... Toro is killing it tonight in the tuck pond. I'm telling you guys. Killing it. You need to be there. If you're not there, you're missing half the show. Well, it's great to listen to this in podcast form or streaming or video, however you may be listening. Man, if you're not on that duck pond 9 p.m. Eastern Tuesday nights, you are really missing half the show. You're missing Germantown Runner. You're missing Toro. You're missing Harry Moss. You're missing Cat Ward, Spook Cat. You're missing a lot. MLK author, who will be a guest in the show whenever he gets around to convincing me to be on the show. It's not even convincing me anymore. I've agreed to it. I just got to get the book and get it read and all that fun stuff. It's happening. It will happen. Even if I have to drag him on here kicking and screaming, it will happen because I'm interested in this book and the events that go around it. He's got me interested in it, so it's going to happen. He's laughing in the chat room right now. I can see it. He knows it's true, though, because he's been a good friend of the show, and that's what I do for good friends of the show. I take care of them. I pay it back appropriately. And so it's going to happen. It's not if, it's when. Okay, so that derailed again. Man, somebody needs to buy insurance because this train's been coming off the tracks. Feel free to call in. I know a couple people have, and then I hung up on them because I was talking to Germantown Runner. So call back in because you've got about 32 minutes, folks. It's going to be over. You're going to wish you had. I can promise you because I get those messages all the time. Man, you were nailing something I wish I would have called in and talked about, but I didn't. And there's Dr. David Proden joining the conversation. One of the smartest people I know and one of the smartest guests in the history of this program. Too kind, I know. Sorry, David. You got to go check out the Safety Doc podcast. Not because I was on it. Matter of fact, don't check out the one I was on. Great, fascinating show that I was on, oh my God, over a year ago about alerts and stuff. But he's the School of Errors, the great book. And I've actually picked it up the other day and was reading something in there. But anyways, not to turn this into a big advertisement for people. A lot of smart people hang out in the duck pond, is all I'm saying. Great people. Content producing people, smart people, people you need in your life. Schoolofherrors.com. There we go. I wasn't sure if that was still functioning or not. I didn't want to just blurt it out and then send people to a dead link. I love it. I love them. I love them all individually. I love them as a collective. Just so they know. So, okay. So we've talked about defunding NPR. I think it's time. I think it's time we move on. I think it's time we start understanding that there are tons of content out there that people can consume. Okay? I think the Wall Street Journal story is interesting because as you try to stay relevant, can you spread yourself too thin is where I wanted to go with that. And Germantown Runner aptly pointed out that they do other stories besides the business, but I think today, 2020, September 1st, 2020, I'm concerned for them. And I'm going to say it this way. I'm deeply concerned for them. Because newspapers are failing nationwide. Radio stations, AM talk, right, are failing. Talk radio is going to change in 10 years. Sports talk radio in 5. Right? I've been doing this show for 9 years now. I've watched the decline. It excites me because I've built enough brand and enough cliche to be on the rise as they're on the decline. So it excites me about what the next 10 years of this program hold. I said it. Funny thing, I had a conversation about making more of these shows, right? People want it. Okay. Not where I was going, though. So if I'm the Wall Street Journal today, do I double down? Do I double down and focus on my business content that is exclusive to me and sell that exclusively? and not try to be everywhere and just be be known for what I'm known for. I don't know. Right? I don't know. Somebody out there smarter than me has to answer that question. But local newspapers are talking about those in the chat room, and let me tell you, I'm deeply concerned. Because the cost of print and the cost of all this other stuff is going up and up in deliveries and the post office, right? You look at all that stuff. And the people that are reading those papers, right? They're not getting any younger. So when's that? I mean, I hate the thoughts of losing my local newspaper. Because there are fractions of value. But they don't present enough of them fractions of value that make me want to buy it. Now, if I see one, I'll read it. Read the local stuff, not the AP reprint. Right? Because that AP reprint I've already read 12 hours ago on Twitter. I know the update. I know. I don't need this. There's nothing worse than picking up the local paper and seeing late game scores. Right? Like, I want to know if the Dodgers won. Sorry, I just do. Of course, I don't really care about baseball, but back when I did, I wanted to know if Kevin Brown and the Dodgers won. I just did. Harry Moss brings up the food shortage, and I know that has been rumored multiple times about food shortage leading into the election in November. I think that's very possible. I think a lot of things are being manipulated right now. So we have to be aware. Right? Be aware of these things. Keep an eye on it. Keep some good staples going. I'm not saying doomsday prep. Right? But I'm not saying be an idiot either. Man, somebody get me Warren Buffett on this program. You're right, Germantown Room. I want to know why. I want to know why he's buying these small town local papers. I want to know why. Somebody out there who knows Warren Buffett or knows why he's buying these small papers, let me know. I'm interested. I love Warren Buffett. I've seen him and Bill Gates being interviewed. Comments aside about Bill Gates, right? There's a lot of conspiracy about him right now. But Buffett is phenomenal. Just the life, the all in. I like Warren Buffett as an entrepreneur. No, boy, I'm totally random right now as I'm just flying through, reading the duck pond. Railroads? Okay, I get railroads. Transportation, easy, old school, makes sense. They're coming dirt cheap, I'm sure, because nobody wants them. And I think eventually, as travel returns, I think trains will play a more integral factor in our future travel. As ridiculous as that says coming out of my mouth, right? But I think trains are part of our future. Easier, less forced air, fresh air, as people look to stay virus free. Easier to do in a train than a plane. Just saying. Okay. Where was I going before we got into Warren Buffett? Anybody have a clue? No, me either. Okay, so. I was talking about the Wall Street Journal and newspapers and all that mess. Okay, so let's work the tree tonight. I started with, you got to have if you're going to say something's trash, you got to know what the treasure is. Okay? Life lesson number 1 out of tonight's Battle Report. As we're doing open lines, and it seems you all are engaged in listening and chatting, which is great. And I enjoy that. So, first takeaway. Please take this away. If you're going to say something's trash, know what the treasure is. It's so easy to sit around and rip something you don't like. Now, this is true, right? And this is ultimately true in this election cycle. Now, it's easy to rip a news site for being trash, but here's the thing, and here's where it often gets so lost in the political discord right now. 2020, this is the problem, right? You got to rip one candidate or the other and say that guy's trash for whatever reason, right? And let's be honest. Can we be honest for a minute? No spin, right? Just for a second. Both these guys aren't saints. Right? Okay. And I'm tired of the banter back and forth about their mental competency and all this other stuff in the news. I want to know what you're going to do for me, Main Street, in 2021. Okay? Can we worry about that for a few minutes? How we're going to get these schools fixed? How we're going to take care of our budget crisis that we're going to have? Can we worry about that? Can we be adults and focus on adult issues for a little bit? I know, a lot to ask. Okay. I'll get off that soapbox because nobody wants to go there. That's a slippery slope. Real adult issues. It's so much easier to worry about things like, whatever, wearing a mask or whatever. Which it's a hot button issue too, but I'm not going to leave it there. I'm going to take this call from whoever is calling in. How are you tonight?
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. How are you?
Ah, Jim, how's it going? Good. Having terrible service.
Oh, well, that's good. That's always a good time to call me. So how are you doing tonight?
Oh, I can't hear it. Crap.
Well, just start talking if you can hear me, and then I'll make it work. What do you want to talk about?
Okay, I think I can actually hear it. I can actually hear you right now. I'm just jumping in, so I don't know what the topics have been tonight. So
I've kind of run all over the place, so just throw another one out and we'll just go through it again or go over it for the first time.
Okay. Let's see here. I'm drawing a blank. I've been kind of in a bubble today, so I don't know what's going on. Food shortages. I saw that in the chat room.
Yeah.
Hopefully, that's a thing that I hope doesn't happen.
I think it's a possible thing because of the I seen Coke laid off a bunch of employees because restaurants aren't open, right? So it is a possibility.
True.
So,
but because I mean they're having to cut production for several different reasons. I mean, obviously you've got to come to where you've got lower demand in the restaurant industry, which is bleeding out horribly right now.
Yeah, I worry about the restaurant industry as a whole. I mean, Andrew was on I keep referring to this interview, and I need to hack it up and put some pieces up so we can get them going really good. But, 50% of mom and pop restaurants being closed by the end of next year kind of still scares me. And every time I turn around, I'm starting to see more and more going that direction.
Oh, no, yeah, it's a serious thing right now. Yeah, and, especially out here in California where, it's just a dumpster fire perpetually, to where I think we're just now starting, in some places, being able to open at 25% capacity for dine-in. And, this is, their bread and butter. This is what keeps them alive. You can only operate at minimal capacity for so long before, you have to shutter. And they were saying, on our news just recently that so many businesses restaurants are closing for good. And it's just, it's sad to see,
Yeah, it's rough. It's crazy to, yes, this is Chris. Good job, Germantown Runner, picking out the voice. I knew it. I knew just the California reference, too, which kind of gave it away.
Yeah, I've got one phone with the chat, and then, I'm on another phone right now. I'm dual phoning. I'm that guy right now. Yes, it is me, Germantown Runner.
Dual phoning, which is incredibly impressive. I'm not sure that I'm concerned or impressed, though.
Yeah, it's like, because sometimes where I'm at, my work phone gets a little better reception. I'm kind of in a cave where my place is, but yeah, so I decided to grab that one, and then I'm just going to the chat right now. But yeah, that's like Andrew said, and that was a great interview, by the way. I've been meaning to get over to his place again. I'm craving one of his shrimp burritos.
Every time I see him posted, some of that stuff I know isn't his, but it just looks good. Like it's bad to follow him. By the way, like he just makes you hungry.
It really is
all the time. I've got a California question. I've got a California question for you. Okay?
All right, shoot.
I mean, you're kind of in one of these states that is more blue, traditionally, right? As being in a state that is more purple right now, as you know, Pennsylvania is, it kind of goes back and forth and on any number of things. Do you see a possible outcome where your state could turn?
Very, very possible. The interesting thing with it, they say that we're a blue state, but it's really only to see that kind of, for lack of better terms, mentality. I mean, and it's obviously Sacramento and like the LA area where obviously the biggest populaces are, because you take, say, Orange County, for example. Orange County is incredibly red, very conservative. There's a lot of money in Orange County, very obviously. And of course, people also forget that some of the biggest farming in the nation is not in the Midwest, but it's actually, Central California, where again, a lot of more, kind of conservative beliefs there. And, you don't want to say that we're probably turning purple, kind of going from blue to red, but there's so much, just discontent with our current leadership, and you could almost see it swinging the other way, which is unusual.
Yeah, I know where I'm at. I do see a lot of Trump signs. I want to say even more than I seen last time. Which, I mean,
yeah,
I think part of it has to do with our governor right now. I'll be honest. I mean, it's bad in Pennsylvania right now politically.
Right. I've seen little blips here and there that, especially when it comes to, especially you guys' schools opening, that there's a lot of just, you can't get a straight answer. And that's got to be insanely frustrating. Well, I can't remember, are you guys, what is your status on like restaurants and, dining and all that kind of stuff?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because our governor was asked this morning about dining in versus dining out, because as you may or may not know, Pennsylvania is reaching the season of fall, which is great.
Right.
Leaves and pumpkin spice and all that fun stuff. But that makes outdoor dining a little more challenging here in a couple weeks to a month, right? And then in another couple weeks to a month, it becomes less tenable as we start to see the white stuff fall from the sky. And so he was asked about how do we, transition from where we are, which is limited to 25 people inside right now, 25, that includes your staff, to a more workable number for people. And he says we're solely focused on getting kids back to school. Majority of kids went back to school today. So, okay, there's that. And a week ago, or 5 days ago, he was openly pushing the legislator to pass legalization of marijuana, but solely focused on getting kids back to school. And
forget that.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, he kind of threw the athletic association, the high school athletic association, under the bus about high school football, right? Just kind of at the end of one of his press conferences said, no, I don't, maybe, which caused a big stir. And then, they sent him a letter, and he couldn't even be bothered to read the letter, let alone talk to these people, which, as you can imagine, football is big. I mean, it's not Texas or California big here, but it's got to be close. I mean, in some of these communities, for sure, right?
Right.
And so he's not gaining any favors by not paying attention to these people. I mean, obviously, take the 4 minutes, because I read it, and read the letter. And call them and have a 20-minute conversation. You're the governor of the freaking state. I understand these kids aren't voting in this election. Voting in the election. Of course, he's not up for re-election. His term is done when his term is done. So he doesn't even care.
So he's checked out entirely.
There's part of me that hopes that Biden wins, just so I can get John Fedorov in office, because we have had Twitter battles, and I think it'd just be fun to be battling with the governor instead of the lieutenant governor. The governor. Just for the record, that is probably maybe the stupidest reason in the history of man to hope somebody wins the presidency. But there's that.
If it's a means to an end, then that's the route you got to take at that point.
I know it sounds like I said. It just sounds so bad, but it is what it is.
Yeah,
I just had that moment of I can't
certainly
even believe I just said that, but.
Yeah,
but I'm sure you feel the same way about your
especially
governor too, right?
Yeah, it's how your mom always told you if you don't have something nice, then don't say anything at all. It's kind of one of those types of situations right now, to be honest. He's so he came up just recently. They released a new reopening initiative, and it still is because a lot of businesses and companies were going on that we need direction. We can't be stuck in this ever permanent limbo.
Yeah,
been in.
Well,
go down when the numbers go down. We need real plans. And he was just like, okay, I'm going to release this thing, and it literally is just as vague and nebulous as what it was. And people were going, and he makes this comment: there's red, purple, blue, and yellow, and but he's like, and there never will be a green. And it's like, okay, so we're never reopening again? Is that what you're saying? So.
Yeah, it's so diluted. It's so confusing, and I wish there was more of. Because at one point there was supposed to be this unified front between Pennsylvania, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, maybe Connecticut. I don't know. There was a bunch of these states that had this big joint Zoom press conference that was ridiculous. For we're in this together, and I cannot think of anything that has ever come out of it except that Zoom press conference.
Well, that must have been very forward-thinking at that point, then.
Yeah, I maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I missed something. Maybe somebody out there knows something and can enlighten us, because I'll forward it to Chris so I can get to the show notes, but I'm missing it.
Yeah, because, I remember hearing, a little blurb or something about that, and wasn't there, another coalition of states, too?
Yeah, I think there was one out west, too, I'm sure. But I don't remember it because it wasn't relevant to me.
Right. Well, it wasn't that pertinent either, because I'm sitting here scratching my head going, I think there was a thing at one point, but
there's always a thing.
Yeah. So. There always will be. But that's all I can think of right now.
I've got one thing left on my list that I have to talk about that's going to... I've been swearing and cussing and carrying on like a sailor tonight, and this is probably going to do it for some people, if they're still listening. Because I think I probably got them to tune out by now, before I said this. And this was brought up by one of these tweet people this afternoon. Man, I was busy on Twitter this afternoon, causing a stir. But they wanted me to openly object and have a discussion about taxing churches.
Taxing churches, I would say yes and no, depending on the situation. I think, obviously the separation of church and state, and that, churches do use a lot of their funds. Churches properly use their funds for, the city and those in need. However, I think when the line should be drawn is when a church makes a political stance openly. You should have your 501(c) or 501(c) revoked at that point. That's just my opinion, and I've probably, lit some people's fires and
that's the point, right?
At Malliard.com. So
yeah, Jim at the Malliard Report. We can handle all these, and I think I have to do a full show on this. I think there has to be a good discourse between me and somebody who can see both sides of this and have an honest discussion. I think it does warrant that. I don't know who that person is yet. I have some people in mind. I don't know if they'd be interested in doing it, but
right. Well, it's funny because I've actually chatted this subject with a good friend of mine. I've got this buddy that it's funny, we have these ridiculous, deep talks on anything from, philosophical matters like this to, the political game and stuff. And we're usually playing, Grand Theft Auto or Red Dead Redemption while we're doing these. But he and I have had this discussion a couple of times that if some of these churches should be taxed, because then you look at, again, if send the hate mail, I don't care. You see these guys like Joel Osteen or was it Kenneth Copeland, these types of individuals, and or even Scientology for crying. Well, Scientology is, I think, losing theirs. I think they're kind of in a battle right now. But, you know, you're buying a jet. You've got these super mega churches, and you live in these big houses. That's, you know, you should be paying something back at this point.
John Oliver last night, whatever John Oliver's show is, he does these great. Okay, I think they're great because I can laugh and get some information from them. Right? Doesn't mean I agree with them, not always, but they're pretty well. They're well done compared to some things I've seen. And he does one about televangelist, and I forget who it was, but somebody was on there. He played the clip about this pastor asking for funds to buy a second jet. And
yeah,
it was like, but it'll help him get to different places faster. And I'm like, but isn't that the point of the first jet? Right? Like, I don't know. It is alarming what goes on. It's a high end, right? But the low end, the majority, somewhere. Again, I'm not prepared to do a full show on this, obviously. But there is a lot of good, but there is some that make you go, really? But that's true in anything, right?
Right. And I guess with that, you know, okay, so there's the extravagance things. You can't argue taxation over misuse of funds. That's something that, you know, you personally have to deal with, whatever. But I guess, or me personally, where I would draw the line, and I used to live in a place, a small town, and I won't say it, so I don't want to name, you know, any places or anything like that. But there was a church in this town that would openly take political stances in, you know, newspapers and stuff like that. And I get belief systems, but when you're taking open political stances, that's where I think, and again, this is just my opinion, but I think that's where the line would be drawn to where, okay, you're getting involved into politics, which it should be the separation. That's why you're not paying taxes. So, but again, that's just my opinion.
No, you're right on. I think to a point. Like I said, there's a case, and that's why this is such a I don't want to say fun argument because that sounds ridiculous, but it's a good argument to have because it's not square, right? Because no matter how you look at it, it's not cut and dry.
Right.
So
exactly.
So that's the good stuff. What else was I going
to
tell you?
Something fun.
I was going to tell you something. I was going to text you the other day, and I can't remember what it was about. So it must have been super important. I try to limit the mindless text to once a week.
Well, it's funny because some of those are like, I've got something to tell you. It's like, okay, what is it? I don't remember.
It was so important.
All right, cool.
It was so important in the moment, and then. Well, you know, sometimes I send that first one to see if, you know, like because I wanted that instant reaction, right? And then when you don't answer right away, it's kind of like, and then I think about it for a few more minutes, and I'm like, back off of it. You sent the email, which is great, but I'm still not posting it till tomorrow, just because of just how things work. Because I think that works. I don't know it works anymore, Chris.
I know it's all chaos. Well, I feel like I've been, you know, was it last week where you're like, hey, what's going on? I'm like, yeah, it's good. Oh crap! It's Wednesday.
Yeah, that's another reason you hear from me. It's Wednesday afternoon, and I'm sitting there going, I have nothing better to do, and I should post the pod. Oh shit! That's okay though. I appreciate you, and you've done great things for this show. So I know I say that a lot, but I don't say it. I can't appreciate you enough. And Germantown Runner wants to ask me what's your opinion on kneeling in sports.
On kneeling in sports, that is a good question. Here's, I guess, again, just my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. Shouldn't hate mill the gym. You know, if you want to make a statement, I absolutely agree with your ability to make a statement, but I say do it when you've got all your sponsor cameras in front of you and your Nike logos and your Powerades and all that kind of stuff. Make your statement then, and then let's see how brave you are.
Well, you know, you've been helping with the show for a while. Did you do Jim Marr's show notes? Have you been here that long, or no?
The name sounds familiar, but I can't say for sure.
Okay, well, years ago, and well, you probably heard it. I did run it as part of the outro for a good while. Watch what they do, not what they say. And I hear that
I remember that phrase, yeah.
I hear that so often in my head. and his voice is so unique. And I'm probably going to bring it back as part of the new outro, whenever that is, 2021. New and approved. 2022, he says. Okay. Again, there's something to be said for not. I have the full hour. If I start playing music and start doing all this other stuff, it just shortens everything up. But anyways, I need to do something. But anyways, that's not why I'm saying that. I'm saying that because it's one thing to say something or do that little action, and I'm not referring to kneeling as a little action. I'm just saying you did it, but what are you doing to change what you're representing? Because it's one thing to do that, but you have to back it up with something else.
Right, and I guess one thing, like, especially kind of in that regards, with some of these players, again, I'm not going to name names because one of the most guilty individuals is one of my favorite players right now. But, yeah, I believe that, everybody's rights should be taken into consideration, like they're making the statements, but when you're being endorsed by a company that exploits children in child labor for, pennies on the dollar, it's kind of a hypocritical argument, in my opinion. But again, that's just my opinion. Send the hate mail to Jim. But
I'll share it with Chris. It's okay. It's all good. No, it is an interesting thing to see what the fight is,
right,
as opposed to what it should be. But that's a whole
exactly.
That's a whole other show for another time.
I was just about to say that's another show. Anyway, it looks like you're about to wrap up, so I will go ahead and jump off. And
man, it sounds like you know the show or something.
Yeah, you think I've listened a time or two. So have a good night. Love to the pawns, and I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, sir.
Bye.
Yeah, it sounds like he knows what the show's about. Man, I've pitched 2 shows tonight. Actually, what? 3 shows? 3 shows in an hour. That's the problem with this show. I get a lot of good ideas and not enough time to do them. And it frustrates a lot of people, and including me. And now doing these live call shows, it really shortens that. It widens the gap on one end, but it shortens the gap on the other. So it's all good. I love it though. I love these. I think tonight was special. No, poor Chris has to write up the show. And I have no idea how he's going to do that. And that's part of the fun. So, let's run downhill for a minute. I released the special guest, and Germantown Runner is absolutely floored, as he should be. Confirmed. I still got to, it's still tentative. It's a scheduled guest. You know how these always work. Next October 1st, first Tuesday in October, we're going to be doing live calls again. First Tuesday in November. My favorite show of the year, because it's the only show that I circle every year on the calendar. It's election night, so I know Germantown Runner's only half paying attention to it, but I know he listens to it because it's so special. It is that great. Prediction show. It's the annual staple. Longest running tradition in this show. I think it's 8 years now. Man, I don't know. Somebody looks that up. It is one of my favorite shows. Never beat the woman who told me she was leaving her husband live on the air. I can never get that out of my mind. That's the bar to beat, folks. Predictions for the new year: leaving your spouse. No, I'm just kidding. Please don't do that on my show again. It was great the first time. A little uncomfortable. I don't think I'm ready for it. If you have not been over to Malliard.com, come over, subscribe to your favorite podcast site. If you leave a review, that's great. Stars, reviews, YouTube videos, that's all great. It's all there. So excited, putting so much effort into the new themalliardreport.com. It's probably not going to be ready next week. It's not. It's just, you're just going to notice it. It's just going to arrive. You're not going to know when. It's only going to host the live show page that it hosts now, but it's just going to be so much more dynamic. But Malliard.com is not going away. That's going to be the bread and butter site, but themalliardreport.com, man, I'm working hard on it. It is going to be your website, your day in, day out website. I can't overstate that enough. It's just going to be where you want to go every day and check. because there's going to be news and all this other stuff.